Hello everyone, the name's Wandering Intention, but you already probably knew that from the title of this video, I'm guessing. Or you probably just thought, here comes a new challenger. I digress. Anyway, let's talk about, well, my montages. Now for the past few months, maybe almost a year now, I've been making montages since quite some time now. You know, not just because I want to do it for like the money or anything like that, but because I just thought, hey, maybe I can do this whole YouTube business without resorting to monetization, which is how people make money on YouTube, and they call it a hobby of sorts. But I won't get into that topic very much because of various reasons. Anyway, today we're going to be explaining the fundamental parts of how I usually make these montages. They come in a various of 4 steps. Step 1, environments and camera work. Step 2, your type, the car choice and the style you want to represent for that car. I'm not going to get in no much detail about that. Step 3, the light. Step 3, working with lighting and the app and special effects. And finally, step 4, when it's all said and done, I'll show you a brief demonstration of how I usually make montages. So don't worry, this will be possibly short. Possibly. So while we're at it, let's start with the first step, which is environments and camera work. So let's begin. So, environments and camera work. What are the environments? Well, if you look around you, Need for Speed 2015 is quite a big place. Well, that is until Payback comes out. But look at the environments around you. Look at everything that surrounds you as you drive around very, well, slowly as I am doing right now. Don't pay any attention to like the AI or the other players or even the traffic cars. Notice which style you really want. Notice which style you want to represent. Notice which car you. Notice everything around you, from the trees to streets to street signs, lamp posts, everything. We'll start. But what does it all mean to you? It means having an environment is like having a blank canvas. You need to know what you're going to be really choosing in order to make a video like this. You can't just throw a JDM car in the middle of the street with a bunch of people now, right? No. Now, unless you were organized and you had like a specific car meet in the middle of the street of the trailway, like Burnwood, for example, that's understandable. But since this is different, since I'm the one doing the tutorial, and since this is entirely different, and possibly because this is all live commentary while I'm doing it, kinda, let's go choose a good spot for our newest creation. Well, my newest creation, for one of my friends. It's his birthday. Well, his birthday was a few days ago, so I figured, better late than never, right? If you can't tell the engine noise, this is a Toyota Supra SZR. Well, SZR, you know. It is not the RZ, which is turbocharged. This is the naturally aspirated Supra. Let's see. Let me just check the camera, line up the car real good. And there we go. So we're here up in El Rey, well, next to the Bishop Rock Wildlife Reserve, which is a pretty nice little place. It has its fair good share of trees, mountain passes, cars passing by, traffic, and of course, the greatest thing, having amazing views and backdrops. That backdrop to the left right there. But we're not focusing on that. Today we're going to be focusing on camera work, first of all. I'll explain environments a little later. I am, well, sort of blessed with the ability of steady hands, where I can do this all day if I wanted to. Now this is only for still moving shots, so if you really wanted to like take a really good photo of your car, this would be it. So let's start with the basics of the basics. Camera work, or rather just moving the camera. See, most people tend to do this. You see that? That in the business is what we call not good camera work. You see, holding a camera in real life is a lot heavier and a lot difficult as you might think. But thankfully, in today's technology, we have cameras like GoPro, or those tripod cameras that can stand still and take good pictures of, or take good moving pictures of the cars as they drift by, do burnouts, or even just flybys. Now, I will say this. It's very difficult to do these kind of shots, especially when you have to make sure you don't hit the car as the camera. You don't make sure you hit the car, because if you hit the car, this happens. If you get too close to the car, the camera will just do this. Notice how my camera is having a hard time, and notice how my camera is actually going up. I'm not pressing R2, which is to raise the camera. No, you don't want that. You just want to just be able to just keep the camera around the car, you know. Just keep it steady. And that's all you can really ask for, right? So let's begin. First, normally, if you were to hold left on the analog stick, you do this. See? And if you were to hold right on the analog stick, this happens. Now, let's get back into position and let's see that exact same shot, but this time let's do it with a slower pace. Now the right. Notice the two. Now notice what I just did there. Now, if you compared, now notice the two. Now, if you compare different speed shots, such as moving left and moving right, compared to what I just did, which was moving left but at a more slower rate. The same also applies for me when I move right. Now, what is that? Well, it's where you have to hold, where if you use your thumb, on your left hand obviously, you don't want to hold the left analog stick too much. You just want to gently push it, as I will now demonstrate. Now this is all muscle memory, and of course you have to really control your thumb muscle as well. So if I wanted to go a little bit faster, I have to do this. If I want to go a little bit faster, I'll do this. And if I want to go a little bit faster, I'll do this. Now within those forward speeds, that was all from my left thumb. That was no gimmick, no tricks, no special effects, none of that. Well, I know people would believe me, but I'm just showing you guys how it's done. Now what I would normally do is, first I practice. Now let's take Scorpio Supra here. Let's pretend that this is the starting line. Alright. What I mean by starting line is like, pretend that there's a line when we hit the front of his car. Now, watch what happens when I go to the left. You see how I was able to stop right at his headlights? Well, his left headlight anyway. Now, that's just from his practice. I've been doing this for like quite a while actually. Now, let's do the same thing here, but this I'm going right. Now, I'm not the best when it comes to this. Now, practice moving left and right very gently like this. Now, if you can practice that between like a pause, like just like a quick second pause. Like you hit, like once you hit this angle, stop, then go back, stop. You can do that without breaking speed or breaking transition, and you got it down pat. And that's strafing done. Let's talk about rotation. Now, like strafing, it all comes down to your thumbs and your fingers, or whatever finger you would prefer using. I'll be honest with you. Normal rotation looks like this. My rotation looks like this. Mess a little bit, but that's alright. Notice the difference? Well, in that entire section I just showed you, there's the difference between normal rotation and, of course, my rotation, which is gentle rotation. Which is why I can do things like this. Practice rotation. It's very simple. Just hold the right stick, but not as much. Just hold it like this, like what I'm doing, which is about, I would say, 20 to 30% of my thumb muscle right now. You can just practice that and just get used to just holding it steady without breaking speed, transition, or the smoothness of it. Then you got it down pat. Now, for the record, I'm not gonna do this all the time, so I'm gonna stop right about here. Next up is the ability to zoom in and zoom out. Now, everyone should know by now, if you know how to look at the camera, people know how to zoom in and zoom out. Now, for better clarification, let's get away from the super for a minute, get this too bright. Notice the little arrow going up, and notice the little arrow going down. That is the level of zoom you actually, that's the level of zoom you can do. If you want drifting shots, you can usually do about, say, around here. But if you want a really close up shot, you get about around here. Now remember, this is not to scale, and different angles, different shots, different positions, different environments can also vary and also play a huge factor in your camera work. So pay close attention to that. Now, R1, of course, as you can tell, is the tilt. Notice the line actually tilting very slightly. The max is about this level. And of course, if you flip it back around, notice the line slightly moving to the left. And that's the max you can do on both sides. Now, for better clarification, let's turn our angle back to normal, which is right here. Now, for better clarification, here are the controls. Now, let's get back to the Supra. Now, once you practice strafing, rotation, rolling the camera anti-clockwise or clockwise, then you should be good, right? Not exactly. Now it's going to take all that we just learned from techniques such as zooming in and zooming out. Now I'm just going to give you a brief demonstration how I usually do it, or rather how I begin the montage with the Supra. of course, if I want to do a zoom in, a zoom out shot, I can also do this. If you really want to use the zoom in feature, go as far back as possible around this level. Zoom in as close as you can to the car, and then just slowly push up on the left analog stick, of course. And you'll get closer and closer to the car without hitting it. Just make sure there's no one in the way, otherwise this won't work. Now, I'm not going to teach you everything about how the camera works, but I will tell you this. The majority of my camera work is pretty much just trial and error. Just figure out which works and which doesn't work. If you're trying to record drifting shots, you might have to become just a little faster to keep up with the cars. But of course, we don't really have, how can I say this? We don't really have a demonstration. So, unfortunately, we'll have to skip that over until a bit later. Excuse me. Now, let's talk about the environments. So after we've delved into camera work, as I mentioned before, environments are pretty much just your blank canvas. They can produce good results or bad results, but the majority of it is pretty much just trial and error. Now remember, you're here to represent the car. You're here to represent what you're trying to do. If you just want an establishing shot of, say, like here, or if you want an establishing shot with the car in the background, then you have to make a little few adjustments here and there, but the result should look like the same. It's very different. Each position you're in, each camera shot, it's all very different, and it's all very complicated. But once you get the hang of it, and once you get used to the whole of just searching for good places to take good shots of your own cars or of other people's cars, you can. Now, of course, as I mentioned before, we're only in El Rey. So if I wanted to take a shot, say, in Burnwood or Crescent Mountains, Southport, Royal Park, Franklin Terrace, I would get different cars. Now, there's nothing wrong using the same car, but if you were to say, for example, representing the drifting scene, you get a drifter's car, which is what I will now do. So, what I mean by a drifter's car usually means like an RX-7, a BRZ, or an FRS, or GTA 6, whichever of the three you prefer, honestly. So let's bring out an RX-7, shall we? Now notice your car. Well, don't use my car as a demonstration, but each car plays a pivotal role when taking these pictures. Look at the car. Think to yourself, what does the car really want? Alright, what would be a good picture for this car? Like I said, the possibilities are endless when endless when you're recording or making a montage. But like I said, practice makes perfect, and usually it's all about trial and error to figure out which works and which doesn't. So for now, let's go over to not Franklin Terrace. Let's go over to Crescent Mountains. Now notice the Crescent Mountains. Notice that you can see not only just the city, but the view also past that. It's a good view, but you don't want to sit next to like the road here, because chances are you will get hit. So let's park our car right here and begin. The second step is now, well, we're not there the second step, but this is just an environment. This is just a demonstration. Now if you look really closely, notice you can see both the car, the main district, which is Burnwood, and further out you can also see a bit of Royal Park and the Southport Bridge. Like I said, the environments are entirely up to you, and how you choose to do it, And how you choose to do it or how you want your shots to be, it's entirely up to you. So don't fret. Like I said, practice makes perfect. Now, let's talk about car choice and the style you want to represent. Right now we're up top of Crescent Mountains. Well, we're near the top of Crescent Mountains. The top would be the dam, which is way back at the map, which I will show later in this video. Now, I will say this. My RX-7 is actually more suited for drifting, hence why we're here. It's a more drifter feel to it, but it looks like a street car, or more like a car that was meant for the track. When in reality, it's not actually. It's not even close to that. Each car can play a different style. Each car that you choose will have to be adjusted accordingly to the environment or the place you want to choose. As I shall now get another car out, and we should go to Southport, well, the middle of Southport, and I shall explain a little bit more about that. So let's go find us another appropriate car when going to Southport. So let's take this 2015 Mustang GT, just, you know, Ford Mustang GT. Kinda wish they brought the GT for you, but beggars can't be choosers, am I right? Also, pay close attention to the spots you choose. Don't just spawn anywhere if you're not feeling the shot. Think to your most favorite place or your most favorite race you like to choose, or choose something different, something you've only done once because the story demanded you to, but choose it again and just get some good shots. Here we go. Charger cops right there, as plainly saying in this game, and because Southport is home to probably one of the worst, well, not one of the worst, but one of the worst places to get to do any racing or any drifting shots anyway. You have to take real good consideration, because not only is a police department here and another one, not only because there's a police department, annoyingly enough, but there are cops all over the damn place. You'll usually find cops around here, where you would be next to Go Big or Go Busted. You'll see cops around these parts as well. You'll also see tons of cops around here. But if you really want to set up the bee's hive, the hornet's nest, this will be your good place. And of course, you'll also see a good drifting spot at the Ventura Bay Arts Center. But be forewarned, as I mentioned before, if there's too many people, or in this case too many racers all over the corner, the cops will get suspicious and they will come towards you. Now, of course, if I wanted to take a shot of, say, somewhere here at El Rey, which is the pier, then all I have to do here is just spawn. You ought to know. God, that was such a bad pun. And I didn't even know the one who made that event. People did. The people who made this game did. And I'll explain a little bit further why I chose this spot. To me personally, I think if you were going to be a fisherman, but you were like a really old school American type fisherman, not Royal Park, yeah, El Rey here, or the pier of El Rey would be good. You see all this? This is good environment, kinda. You can also see a bit of the road, a little bit of the road over there, and there's this. You can see a bit of the ocean, a bit of the coastal road over here. Or if you want to take a shot of the car with like the backdrop of the mountains, the piers rocking back and forth, and the power lines, you can. Or if you're really, really getting creative, you can also take I would say like a still moving shot where you can see the rain, the boat still moving, but you can also see the mountain passes way at the top of El Rey. Notice how cool that is. But as I said before, each car has its own little charm to it. Not all cars are gonna fit in different places, but the end of the day is it's your style. It's your style, it's your car, it's your choice. Whatever you want to do, it's all up to you. Just make sure that doesn't happen as people will run over the camera. People won't be able to tell because the camera line is, because people who are not in the Snapshot Pro will become immediately blind to the camera line. So that's very annoying. So pay good close attention to people and AI drivers, especially, as it's really fucking annoying. As I mentioned before, this entire game is pretty much dark, with the sole exception of Crescent Mountains and Franklin Terrace, as Crescent Mountains is dawn and Franklin Terrace is dusk. As I shall now demonstrate. Now I won't stay in the Mustang for too long, as I mentioned before. You can tell that the lighting is so much different than compared to like the likes of Crescent Mountains and Burnwood. And yes, that is actually dusk. In case you didn't know about that, now you know. But look at the views. Look at the views. Look at the establishing shots. Look at the creativity. Well, the creativity. Yeah, can't say that word without getting tongue twisted, folks. But look at the creativity here. Creativity. Fuck it. Look at the possibilities here. Now tell me, what do you think is behind those mountains over there? Well, apart from being Crescent Mountains, or tell me, what do you think is behind anything? Have you ever really thought about it for a minute? Like, have you ever really actually thought about, what if this game was still dusk if I was able to drive all the way to, say, Royal Park or Southport, as you can see far, far over there. And yes, that is actually Southport. And over there is Burnwood. And a little further over there, that's Royal Park. Anyway, let's get back to it. We'll discuss lighting, but let's talk about the effects. If you press square, notice the effects you have. You have for preset effects, which is usually going to negative, to film stock, to orange and teal, to grayscale, black and white, and sepia. If you know your camera effects, this usually gives like a more bigger wow effect. It usually also helps when also distinguishing different car culture styles and so on. So if I was to have like an old school muscle car, like an old school Mustang, I'd probably use the sepia effect. Of course, you have to make sure to turn down or adjust the effect strength. Now, if you are really clever and really smart, which I know you are, you can usually adjust the strength about, say, around here. The dots will also tell you how much you really want. So around here, you can tell the effect is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and the max level would be this. But we'll discuss that a little later. Next up is the more camera effects. Exposure compensation is pretty much brightening up the game. Now notice that the little blue dot right here, as you can tell, is going up, but it's not hitting the dots it's actually going up like by scales. So the more you have the exposure compensation, the more you have, then the more bright it gets. Just be careful not to brighten up too much. And be careful not to darken the game too much. Otherwise, how the fuck is anyone supposed to see the game? See your shots or your montages? I usually keep it around here or here, depending on the TV, the brightness setting on the TV, or depending on the brightness settings on your system or the game itself. Chromatic aberration is pretty much distorting the camera, as you can see right here. It pretty much gives like this unusual blur effect, but it's also harder on the eyes. It looks cool, but it also gives like this weird zoom in feature, which I don't know what the hell is that all about. I rarely ever use this effect for very good reasons, because it looks unnatural and looks kind of weird. Now technically you could use this in your montages to be a little bit more different, but that's only if you were like, say like, if I was going to the black and white scale right here, or even the grayscale effect, but even that looks weird. Usually it goes around 1 dot or 2 dots of this level. It's pretty good, but we won't discuss that later. So let's get back to normal effects. It makes the things that are so far out make it more blurry. Now of course, the less you have, the more it really brings it through. As you can tell right here, you can have a really good clean shot of this car right here. Well, the Mustang anyway. But you can also see the view, and it's just out of reach. It's just out there, wondering what's really out there. And of course, I like this before, be careful not to get too close to the road, but don't get too close to the wall, as you won't be able to rotate your camera all the way around. As watch. Notice I have to make an adjustment here, and notice the camera is also struggling, and notice it just did that, annoyingly enough. Now, you can have the focal distance all the way off, but that's only if you're having establishing shots. Usually around here it's pretty good. But again, like I said, this is just what I do. So this means nothing if that's not your type of style. Just be careful when using these effects. Depth of field is pretty much the ability where it's pretty much the effect where if this is still high if this slider is still high but this isn't, watch what happens. See? Notice how I just moved it, but but now you can't see shit in it. But the more however, if I go down just a bit further, you can also tell the car is now starting to become blurry and you can't see very well. And you back up just a tiny bit more, you really can't see it. The only thing you could see is the road itself, but that's about it. Now of course, if you really want to improve, and of course and of course you can't see shit, and of course once that happens, of course you can't see anything. So just turn back the field of depth by doing that. Now alternatively, you can use the field of depth and decrease it all the way low, but keep the focal distance high, but just move it just by one slider, by just moving it just one time, and that's it. And finally, we have lens distortion gains, which is basically having fish lens. It's kind of like having, have you ever seen what fish eye lens camera angle? Yeah, that's pretty much what it does, as you can tell right here. Now, of course, like I mentioned before, I again really reuse this camera angle for very good reasons, as it looks kind of freaky almost. Now, finally, it's time for the other effects. This is where you can control, we'll basically turn on like a lot of things. So if we have a rain effect, you can turn that off or turn it back on. But it's only for places that's raining a lot, so which is going to usually happen around Burnwood, Royal Park, Southport, and El Rey sometimes. Usually you can glitch it by making it turn off, but that's only if your internet's pretty fucking terrible, or just bad overall. Film grain is where it kind of makes it look like it's in a film almost. You can't really tell the difference, but I'll switch it back on so you can see. Notice the screen has this really weird, almost dark blue tint to it every time I switch it on and off. Vigent. Now, if you know what the Vigent is, basically it just makes this happen, where you can focus, or really focus on the car, but it also pretty much cuts away all the other bullshit. Pretty much, you wouldn't be able to see anything else. But, you know, I digress and shamelessly plug. I always wanted to say that. You have body work damage, Now, of course, if you are lazy and you don't feel like repairing your car at the nearest gas station, which is over there. Whoops, let me just turn that off. Usually turning off this feature pretty much keeps your car clean. Now, it won't keep your car clean all the time, as you can tell. The more you drive, you'll also accumulate dirt and dust on the road as you drive along. I don't know why they even bothered with the rain droplets effect on every car when you come out the garage, but it's whatever. You also have lens flare, which, if you know what lens flare is pretty much when you're able to see, where you can tell the difference between this. Here, a demonstration. See, notice that the headlights and the taillights become absolutely brighter than it needs to be compared to everything else. And finally, we have wheel position, left and right. Now again, that's only if you're doing like like the illusion of a drifting shot. But again, since we don't have that many people, unfortunately, we cannot demonstrate it. So, sorry to say, but that's as far as I can tell you about that. You just point the wheels left and right and just keep it like that. Wear it out and you will eventually break it. Trust me, I've done it before. Once you got all 3 steps taken care of, in my horrible explanation, you should usually have a montage that might look like this.